Let's head off to the hotline. Looking forward to the conversation with Jon Flack, President, Chief Operating Officer at Just Marketing International. They are based in Indianapolis, heavily involved in this sport at a lot of different levels. First time to have Jon with us on the show. Jon, how are you? Welcome. Thanks for making time for us today.
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. It's our pleasure. And we explained a little about Just Marketing earlier, that you've handled UPS and Farmers and a ton of high-profile sponsor deals in this sport for a long, long time. Been around the company and been involved with it a bit myself over the years. So we appreciate very much your insight here. We talk about the state of the economy in this sport with callers all the time who want to know why certain things happen. And I'm a big believer in the old theory, follow the money, if you want to know why things happen in this sport and many others. So your insight is much appreciated here. Where are we in the economy of NASCAR racing in particular, motorsports in general right now? Are we seeing some turnaround coming up?
Well, certainly in the conversations I'm having, I'm seeing that. There's been many companies that have cut their bottom line pretty aggressively, tried to cut costs, and at some point there's a limit to how far you can go, and marketers start to think about you got to grow and you got to invest. And so there's a lot of balance sheets with where companies have some cash they've been sitting on. The elections, as I heard you speaking to a little earlier, is a concern and something to be watched, and that matters to certain companies and categories more than others. But we're certainly finding that there's a lot of interest and a lot of brands and companies that are sitting there, and they've cut as deeply as they can, and now they got to spend to grow.
John, and once again, I've thought about that quite a bit, and I heard that back in the day when I was a young guy, and it didn't mean a lot to me when I heard people talking about, well, we're not going to know anything after these elections. We're going to have to wait on these elections. Well, I understand it today, but we're at a pretty critical point right now in the economy of this country, and a very, very important election are the folks that would invest in this sport. Are they sitting back and just kind of waiting till this thing is over with? And maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to throw this in there anyway. Does it really matter who's in, who's out, what party's in or what party's out? Does that help or hurt our sport?
Yeah, I think it's more about the stability of the economy, and that the elections are very tied to that, obviously. So I think that, the conversations we're having, there's a number of brands and companies that are still, you don't hear that come up. You don't hear the elections come up. And they're talking about, do we still try and maybe trial a program this year? Do we maybe buy a paint scheme yet this year, try it? And I think that one of the things we find is there is a perception amongst a lot of marketers and CMOs that to be in NASCAR, the price point, is very high. And so there's an education process that you can enter at a reasonable level. There's opportunities. You don't have to be a full season primary sponsor on a car. You can buy a race. You can combine it with an entitlement. You can put some media against it, and you can see if it moves the needle for your business. You don't have to jump in with both feet necessarily, and test it, trial, see if it moves the needle on your business, and then grow it from there. So, there are some lower price points and entry points into the sport that maybe didn't exist years ago. You don't have to jump in with both feet, and so we find that for a lot of brands that's appealing, and they've got some cash stored up, and they're thinking about how to spend it. But when you get into categories like healthcare and others, yeah, you're watching the elections closely, and you're probably not going to invest a lot till you get on the other side of that.
Yeah, it's certainly something to watch as we go into these next 12 weeks until we get to Election Day. This, of course, affects fans in a lot of direct ways, and a lot of times we spend moments here kind of explaining how it all has to fit together. Favorite drivers sometimes don't get to drive these race cars unless there are corporate partners willing to step in and back them. We've talked a lot here over the last many weeks about Matt Kenseth and the apparent move to Joe Gibbs Racing for Home Depot. Where does that leave Joey Logano? They'd like to keep him. Sponsorship is the issue there. Are you finding companies saying, hey, I want to sponsor a particular driver, I want to get in business with a particular race team, or is it more on the track and the sanctioning body level where the interest is?
Yeah, it depends on the objective. Everybody has different objectives. Some are trying to build brands. Some are focused on B2B and access to partners. That varies. We deem this to be a buyer's market right now. It's like the housing market. At some point, there's great inventory available, great opportunities available with a lot of good drivers, championship caliber drivers with proven track records. and that hasn't always been available to sponsors. And so when we're talking to a lot of CMOs, they're saying, hey, let me know when you think that the price points have bottomed out, because I want to buy at that point like I would buy a home. And so, we're very much giving the counsel and believe in this. That there's great inventory with entitlements of races, with great championship caliber drivers and the league. That we think that we have hit the bottom. We've started to move the other way, and if you're going to buy, it's a great time to buy.
John, I got to tell you, one of the things that I love to talk about because I love the sport. I absolutely have watched this thing from back in the day, and I love to kind of joke about it, watching back from when it was Joe Shell on the corner was a sponsor on the car, and now we've got Shell Pennzoil, and the reason that they're here, it works for those folks. When we see sponsors come into the sport, they come in here, and a lot of them stay for a long time, and it is expensive to do this. But what they get in return it's got to be great for these companies.
Well, it's all focused on the results. So, everyone gets into the sport for a variety of reasons. Their executives are passionate about it personally. Others, their customers are passionate about it. But what we always try to do is sift through all that and just make sure, what are you trying to achieve? What are your objectives? And so long as every year when we go in front of the board and they ask us, what's this doing for my business? If we've got good answers, it's hard to walk away from that. And the sponsors that you're referencing that have been in the sport a long time, as well as our clients, a lot of our clients, the last few years have been tough, and there's been a recalibration in where they're spending money, but we're seeing that's settled a little bit, and now we're seeing them start to grow the other way and step up a little bigger than maybe they have been the last few years. So we think those are positive signs.
And I think that is a positive sign. It's good to hear about those things. The other kind of big picture thing that we spend time talking to fans about, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today, we used to see sponsors come in and essentially fund the startup of a team. And people ask us about new teams coming in, especially at the Cup level, and we say, I don't see it. I don't hear anything about a new team starting up. Dodge leaves, and that takes some money out of the sport, certainly. Are we getting close to a time when owners that maybe, Tommy Baldwin's going to be on the show with us in a few minutes, some of those types of owners that are maybe in that second tier find a partner willing to come in and say, okay, we want to help you step up and become an A-level team in this sport?
Well, they're definitely, I think, as the pressure of the economy the last few years has been on the corporate sector, and we've certainly seen a flight to quality, or not quality, but a flight to performance, because marketers don't like risk. They like to remove as much risk as possible in most situations. The election is a source of risk, but performance is another source of risk. So they're trying to make decisions to minimize the risk. But I think that and so we've seen a lot of that. We've seen some movement in the sport. But I think that for the right brand, single car teams, where you're trying to challenge, you're maybe not the lead in the category, but you're a challenger brand, that fits you well, to align with a single car team and be that car on the track, where you're going up against the multi-car teams and you're battling them toe to toe, and you're competing well. So again, back to the objectives for some companies and some brands, being aligned with a challenger team, a single car effort, is the right place to be, right opportunity.
Yeah, John, big news coming out. We got TV contracts going to be here real soon. Understand we're going to be showing a lot of stuff out of the country. Does that open up different markets? And once again, we see that we've got Brazilian drivers, we've got Colombian drivers, NASCAR in Mexico, pretty big deal. We're racing in Canada. Is there an opportunity out here if we get TV into those markets? Does that open up an area for you to go into? In other words, you can leave the country now and go to other countries and maybe find that sponsor.
Yeah, I'll give NASCAR and the leadership a lot of credit. It's a family business at the end of the day, and if you've been part of a family business, it's personal. And I expect that leadership's going to be around a long time, because it typically is in family businesses. They've stepped back and really evaluated and benchmarked the sport versus all the other forms of entertainment, not just sports, but concerts, lifestyle events, others, to just see how is the sport indexing. And from that, they've developed a industry action plan that they're working. And one of those you're starting to see a number of those initiatives take form, one of which is getting the digital rights back, which should have a really big impact on youth. You're seeing these steps with Fox Deportes to reach multicultural audiences, which is going to that's the future. I mean, ensuring that the hardcore fan still loves the sport and loves the product on the track, but exposing new audiences to the sport. So I think as a marketer, I'm thrilled to see that, because I think that that opens up new categories, that opens up new brands, new markets, and new forms of revenue that we can start to feed off of to help fund the sport for the future.
It's important to make those initiatives and make them work. Jon, we appreciate your time very much. Going to have to close with just one final thing. We have people from the OEMs, from the manufacturers on with us frequently. They all say they're here because it works. It helps them move equipment, move iron out of showrooms. You still believe in that strongly?
Absolutely.
Great. Good to hear that from you. We appreciate it. Look forward to the next time we get to chat. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.